Page 2 now, the budget battle, or should it be the lack thereof? The Republican leadership seems to be happy to give the president all he wants in another omnibus budget. Omnibus is just a fancy way of saying one huge chunk of money to fund government. The way it's supposed to be done is incrementally. Fund the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, and so on, piece by piece. Not one huge wad of money. The problem is no one in the GOP leadership is talking this way right now. Why? Well, they are scared to death of a possible government shutdown. In fact, incoming Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says another government shutdown is off the table.
It takes 60 votes to do a lot of things in the Senate, but there are some things we can do with 51 votes. A budget is an extremely important thing. The president does not sign the budget, and that determines how much we're going to spend. I think it's within our ability, within our power, to pass more appropriation bills which fund the government, and there's no secret that I and most of my members think that the bureaucratic strangulation of our economy is a huge factor in the slow growth that we've experienced after the deep recession of 2008. And so I think it's reasonable to assume that we will use the power of the purse to try to push back against this overactive bureaucracy.
Now, House Speaker John Boehner says nothing is off the table. So who do we believe? We've heard Boehner say impeachment is off the table, but why take any constitutional authority or obligation off the table? Joining me now from Washington, D.C., contributing editor at U.S. News and World Report and Daily Ledger contributor Peter Roth. Peter, so the Republicans earlier this year agreed to a budget deadline of December 11th, knowing that it was going to be a lame duck Congress. I have a theory on this. I want to hear yours first. Why do you suppose they did that?
Well, Graham, I think that even when they made the agreement, they saw the idea of a Republican House and Senate was within shouting distance. And so to say we'll go through from the end of September, start of the new fiscal year, to December 11 after all the elections are done, including the runoff in Louisiana, maximizes their negotiating leverage in the lame duck session, especially if we're coming into a Republican majority starting January 1. By stopping midway, they were able to prevent a long-term or year-long CR from passing. That would have been no good. And they understand that whatever they negotiate post-December 11 can always begin to be undone post-January 1.
Okay, so I'm missing something here then. You got to explain to me. Why do you think it gives them more leverage in a lame duck Congress to do this now?
Because there are Democrats who understand that if they want to have any influence on a deal moving forward, if they want to get things done in stone, rather than face the prospect of them being undone by a new Republican Congress, that they have to compromise now, that they have to negotiate in good faith now. This isn't like the post-2012 election or the post-2010 election, where they had a Democrat Senate to backstop any piece of legislation and keep it from getting to the president. They can't do that anymore, or at least it will be very difficult. I expect you're going to see some progress on the filibuster rule that is going to make life unpleasant for Democrats who think that they can stop things with 60 votes. And so in order to get any kind of a deal that's acceptable to their core constituencies, meaning the people who fund their campaigns and the people who turn out votes for them, like the trial lawyers and the labor unions, they've got to negotiate in good faith now in the lame duck session.
I don't know. I have a more cynical view. I think the Republicans did it so they could blame a large omnibus bill that's going to fund the government for almost a year down the road, so they could blame it on the Democrats and just wash their hands of the whole thing. I think they're lazy and they don't have the guts to stand up to Obama. So here's what I think should happen, Peter. I want to hear your opinion on this. I think that they need to appropriate the government beginning probably in January, as it should be, department by department, chunk by chunk, and not one giant omnibus bill. So what should happen between now and December 11th, in my opinion, is a continuing resolution for about, you pick it, 45, 60 days. Just buy them enough time to get the new Congress seated and proceed from there.
Well, you're arguing for return to regular order, which is what John Boehner has argued for throughout his speakership, whether he was and when he was minority leader. I think there's a good chance you're going to see that. There is a timetable in law as a result of the '74 Congressional Budget Act that specifies when things are supposed to be done. Congress has never met those targets in the 30 years, 40 years since that law has been on the books. One of the things I would like to see is budget process reform so that we're moving to two-year budgeting. We're getting rid of current services budgeting. We have automatic sequesters that kick in rather than long-term or short-term CRs if no agreement can be met. Right now, the process rewards people in the long term who want to spend money and punishes people who want to be centurions and safeguard the taxpayer dollars. Because all the spenders have to do is run out the clock. I want to see that change. But I think that come January, you are going to see a much more by-the-book approach to budgeting. I'm certainly hoping that's what you're going to see under Mitch McConnell and John Boehner, because they know now that they can get things out of the Capitol and up Pennsylvania Avenue to the president's desk.
Yeah, I think we ought to throw out baseline budgeting. You can add that to your trash heap, too. Okay, 30 seconds left. Peter, why are the Republicans so afraid of a government shutdown? It's happened 18 times in recent history, and the world hasn't ended. The government hasn't come to an end. Is it they're so inept in terms of spinning or in terms of just telling the American people the truth of how the Constitution works, how the budget system works, how the presidency works, and who to blame? Is that why they're so afraid of this?
I think it's because whether it was Reagan or Clinton, the shutdown always got blamed on the Republicans. What I think we're seeing now are McConnell and Boehner and others laying the groundwork to explain that if the government shuts down, it's because of Obama and only because of Obama.
Well, we'll see. They need to explain a little bit better for my taste. Thanks, Peter.